today to speak in the name of Slovak youth as the Slovak UN Youth Delegate. One of the biggest concerns of youth today is education, a very important tool that provides us with skills and knowledge. Education is a starting point for a better future. When this starting point is neglected, a wide spectrum of youth-related problems follow, such as high rates of unemployment, low political participation, poverty, violence, and a lack of awareness about fundamental issues that affect us all, such as human rights, the global economic crisis, and climate change. Moreover, a good quality education determines not only the course of an individual's life, but also the development of a whole society. The achievement of universal primary education is recognized as one of the top priorities of the United Nations, as it is stipulated in the Millennium Development Goal number 2. States are also committed to the Dhaka Framework for Action, Education for All, adopted under the auspices of UNESCO. According to this document, by 2015, everyone is supposed to have completed free and compulsory primary education of good quality. Education as such is a hot topic on the table. However, there is very little global attention given to the education of minorities, even though the right to education is just as significant to them as it is to the rest of society. We should be aware that saying education for all does not mean only persons belonging to majority population. All means all. This must include minorities. Education of minorities is particularly important for the preservation of their cultural heritage, language, and traditions. At the same time, it is unacceptable to segregate minority children, since the segregation deepens the cultural gap and is a hindrance to the peaceful coexistence of majority and minority populations. On the contrary, inclusive and culturally appropriate education may be the key to prevent conflicts between majority and minority populations, as well as to fight xenophobia. When minority youth lack proper education and are marginalized, they are more likely to resort to violence. We have witnessed this in Europe, and unfortunately, the problem has been growing without much attention paid to it by the global community. Coming from Slovakia, I would like to point upon the issue of education of Roma population. Roma are one of the biggest ethnic minorities in Slovakia, as well as in the whole of Europe. Recent developments have shown that their education is not only a problem in countries where they live, but by its cross-border implications, it has become a pressing international problem. The education of Roma children has also become one of the goals of UNESCO. Despite the efforts to expand and improve their education, only 42% of Roma children in Europe have completed primary education. Furthermore, estimated Roma attendance in secondary education is only 10%. The Millennium Development Goal number 2, that all children will be able to complete primary education by 2015, is going to be officially achieved in Europe due to the statistical indicators that include majority children in most European countries. However, an alarming number of Roma children in Europe are not even close to reaching this goal. Mr. Chairman, Slovakia is fully aware of the urgency to tackle the problem of Roma communities, and it has therefore developed the strategy for solution of Roma-related problems, in which one of the crucial areas is the provision of access to education for Roma children and youth. Our goal is to ensure that all Roma children have equal access to quality education, with the aim of closing the gap between the Roma and majority children at all levels of education. Furthermore, we are committed to remove the segregated education of Roma children, which is unfortunately still persisting. As a result of such segregation, thousands of Roma children are trapped in substandard education in special schools for students with mental disabilities. Slovakia has declared its intention to change the situation by significantly improving the access to quality education for Roma children and youth. However, it is impossible to solve this complex problem constructively and effectively without close international cooperation. The education of minorities, and particularly the education of Roma, is one of the biggest youth-related challenges that Europe is currently facing. There is no doubt that better international support and cooperation will lead to the improvement of education of minorities and thus to their successful advancement in other areas of life. I am certain that the creation of an international platform for states to exchange information and experiences related to the education of minorities would be very helpful in tackling the problem. At the same time, in our quest for improvement of the education of minorities, we should not focus only on formal education, but also on the facilitation of non-formal education, which would lead to a more profound inclusion of minorities. I call the international community's attention to this alarming problem and to act on this urgent matter, so that education will truly be a reality for all, and not only for as few as 42% of Roma children in Europe. I'm convinced that this very low number may be increased with our common efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.